Kia ora tātou. I really hate speaking to the mic, but they tell me that if we don't speak to the mic, we're not picked up by the live stream. So I'm stuck a little bit behind the lectern here. So first of all, I want to acknowledge everybody in the room in terms of what we're talking about all through the day is sharing insights that all of you have been part of creating. You know, this is I acknowledge in the room the many, many decades of commitment, mahi and understanding for all of you who have worked in social services in its many various forms over time. What you're seeing amongst yourself is people from providers, people from council, people from iwi, and people from government. So this is very much us sharing amongst ourselves rather than speaking to an audience who don't understand what's happening in family violence or addictions in our region. Willie and I are part of a group that are working on a new initiative that I'm going to take you through. And forgive me for those of you who may have seen some of this before in terms of I've started at the basics at the beginning. Given its newness, I've found personally that the more often I've heard it, the more often I've understood it as well. So we're going to start at the very beginning. So this is about an opportunity for community commissioning. So community commissioning is a process whereby the government is proposing that it send into regions the power, the money and the resources that it has held to provide social services. There has been talk about this since the 1980s. There have been many attempts to do this, none of which have really been comprehensively taken up, mostly because the Crown has never really truly let go. The rhetoric on this one is this time they will. Once we get going, we'll get to see how true that is, but the statements are we're going to devolve power to regions. The process comes out of the Social Investment Agency. So unfortunately in the news a little bit at the moment for all the wrong reasons, but the Social Investment Agency is a new entity that was created last year. It was given its own fund of $200 million and it has been tasked with this process of working on a number of innovative ways of doing social services. It has a number of pathways. So pathway one was most of the 200 million has been made available to providers by application to do innovative social services. That round opened and closed a couple of months ago, and there will be providers out there who now have some of that 200 million and are able to run services across the spectrum, but with a focus on young people in particular as the Minister's priority in a way that is different from the past. Pathway two, many of you work for providers who are funded by many contracts. Someone like Trotac or Ngāti Porou Oranga may have 30 or 40 different contracts, many with the same government but with different departments. So contract consolidation was an opportunity to say, instead of having lots of little contracts, let's put them all together as a single contract, and the contract moves to being with the Social Investment Agency and not the entities that you have been contracted with in the past. So not Oranga Tamariki, not MSD, not MB. That round opened and closed very quickly. All of these are based on an application process or a request for applications, so that's more by invitation. So this is not the whole sector, this is an experiment basically with parts of the sector. We understand that some providers have already been told that they won't be allowed contract consolidation, but we've heard that there are a couple in the region who are being given the opportunity to work through that process. What Willie and I are going to talk to you about is pathway three, and I'll come back to that. So pathway four is the government is interested in the way in which other money partners with the government and in terms of investment. So in our case, they're talking about philanthropy, so they're talking about Trust Tairāwhiti and the way in which Trust Tairāwhiti funds things and how that might partner with the way the government funds things. So Pathway 3 is community commissioning, and that's the work that we're working on here. So Pathway 3 does not come from the 200 million. So the opportunity to commission is based on taking money out of government departments and giving it to the SIA, who then commission it in region. Great big step to be made there around slicing regional budgets out of government departments and putting it in the SIA. There is a lot of, there is no written policy on this at the moment. They're building the plane as they're flying it. We're expecting announcements in December around what this would actually look like, what the quantum is, how it might work. But given that we've been told that they'll call for expressions of interest in January, we're doing all the work now on the presumption that we will be invited to put in an expressions of interest. We understand that that invitation is rare. We don't believe there'll be more than 10 regions or entities invited to do community commissioning, and we think actually it's likely to be far less than 10. So this is a major opportunity for Tairāwhiti, but also an acknowledgement of the skills and experience and understanding that's happening in this region that would allow the government to make a safe bet with us. Being clear that the entity that seeks a commissioning pathway has community mandate has been stated up front by the SIA. So I'll come to who's working on the project, but it must represent basically a whole community. It can't just be a section. So we're at the stage in terms of talking to people like you and people in your organisations where we have mandate from the kind of political level of the region, and we are moving down into making sure that everybody understands what the opportunity is and backs a bid from Tairāwhiti. Trust and confidence is key. This is a big risk for the government. It's the reason for 45 years, Puao Te Atutu in 1986 said that social services would be better run if they were run locally than if they were run centrally out of Wellington. I've been tracking the history of the attempts, and I say the key thing is the government tends to be scared of what will happen if they let go. And so trust and confidence that the letting go goes to entities who will provide beneficial outcomes, who have already proved it and are not just speculating based on a plan. We believe that everything that you're going to see here today is why they have trust and confidence in this region. And lastly, and very importantly, the rhetoric is that it will be based on outcomes and not methodology, that the commitments that we're going to make will be for wellness amongst our people, as opposed to a promise that will put 25 young people through a driver licence program and that will in some way get them employment. So it's about the outcome, not the outputs that we are used to being measured on. And it's not a challenge from the government to the commissioning entity or to the providers on how things are achieved. It's about what you achieve, not how. That's all really exciting to us because it's everything all of us have always wanted, really, is to be trusted, to be allowed to do it in the way that we understand would work, and to be unlimited by the way in which Wellington tends to set up contracts where they take a human being with a problem and slice them. And they give you a little contract to deal with the lack of driver licence, and they give you a little contract to deal with the fact they've got bail conditions, and they might give you a bigger contract to deal with housing, and then none of the three entities who are giving you those contracts talk to each other. And if you walk in the room to deal with driver licensing and you see family violence and you see budget problems and you see addiction services, for many of you, you have to say, unfortunately, I can't deal with that. I'll send you to someone else. So holistic services is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for a way of funding support to whānau that is led by the whānau and is about the whole whānau and the whole integrated support that they need, rather than a little contract on a slice. So that's a bit about, and all of our presentations will be available on the website afterwards, and there is more detail that will be linked into these things. So part of our discussion with government is the impact is high. If we do the right things at the right time, not only do we save money, because we, everything that you're going to see later in the day is going to talk to you about the way in which things are wasted. We have these amazing statistics about 50% of work by some departments is actually rework from mistakes that are made earlier, or 75% of work is about the administrative system and not about the client. If we invest at the right time and in the right way, not only will that money, we're not aiming to save anybody any money, we're aiming to then spend that money in a better way to create wellness and productivity that will actually impact on beneficially, not just on the whānau, but on the region and on the nation. And we have evidence and insights for all of that. These are not just statements that we blandly make. We have economists working on impacts, the things that you see around our room in terms of the work that the Iwi Hub has done, that Whangaia and Ka Awatea and Leslie and the Navigators and Urani have done, proves all these things. So we, the region, have a track record in this. That's why we believe that we will be one of the ones who are invited. So this project, this bid that's being put together, is being put together by a collective within the region. Manaaki Tairāwhiti and Toitu Housing Limited, in terms of iwi's representation, are working together. That means that when we wrote to the Prime Minister when he came to town a couple of weeks ago, and provided him with this presentation, or a version of this presentation, that we were able to sign up at the bottom of that letter from all of these entities to say, we're in agreement, Tairāwhiti is the place that you should invest, Tairāwhiti is the place that you can trust will do a good job with this opportunity. Just a reminder, we talk Manaaki Tairāwhiti, and many of you relate and have relationships with the staff in Manaaki Tairāwhiti. But our governance board is made up of social service leaders in this region, so chaired for a very long time, and I want to fully acknowledge Ronald here, Ronald Nepi, who has been the stalwart and the underpinner of Manaaki Tairāwhiti since 2017. That others have come and gone, and Ron has always been there to make sure that the rest of it carries on. So, kia ora, Ronald. Ngāti Porou sit in Manaaki Tairāwhiti, originally co-designed with Ngāti Porou, and Hirawini Te Koha was the co-chair. George was the co-chair for a period of time just before he left, and Nomai is currently holding that seat on behalf of the Runanga Nui, but out of Oranga. Then, community organisations, some of you are part of in terms of your relationships with the network. So Michelle here is not as Chief Executive of the YMCA, but as the Chair of the network. I always get mixed up which networks are which. So the Community Voice Network, and Chris as the Family Violence Network. So their position on the board represents many providers. And then the public sector in numbers. So, we have Danny here, and we have Doug here from Trust Tairāwhiti. Can't see any other board members. And Kāinga Ora are here in the back. So the public sector is at the table working on these things together with us. And then Toitu, as I say, represents the 4 iwi. In the commissioning bid, Ngāti Porou has not yet decided where it sits in this picture, so is not a name that we're putting forward in this process. So the thing that we're seeking is what we tend to call vote Tairāwhiti. We don't want a little bit of housing, a little bit of family violence, a little bit of addiction services. We want to be given a material amount of money for us to decide what we do with it. So we don't want to be contracted to deliver pieces of housing or pieces of correction services. Sorry, Deb, I should acknowledge you as a board member too from corrections. we want to be completely free as a region to decide how the money is spent. So we refer to that as Vote Tairāwhiti. We're ambitious. We've done research between Toitu and Manaaki Tairāwhiti. We believe that the government spends between $1.2 and $1.5 billion in the region every year in social services. We believe that there's another $1.4 billion is spent by entities in the region that are not governmental. So the pie that we're talking about here is $2 to $3 billion. And therefore, if we're talking in the end about anything less than substantial money, hundreds of millions, then this is not what the government is saying it is. It becomes just another little contract, no matter how big it might be. So it has to be a material amount of those billions of dollars. So when we talk to people, when we talk to the government, we talk in the billions. We are asking for $1.5 billion to be devolved to the region so the region can decide how it's spent. One of the things that happens when contracts are devolved, and those of you in provider leadership will understand this, is sometimes you get money. So MSD might give you a contract to do some things, and then you're assessed on whether you succeeded or failed in that, but you had no extra money for buildings, no extra money for vehicles, no extra money for research and development. You just got the little bit of operational money. So when we talk devolution, we're talking everything. We're talking the ability to actually run a system in a way that the Crown has had the benefit of running it, but we believe that we could do it better. We would make the point that this is not necessarily about handing over cash, it's about decision rights. So we don't care whose bank account that money sits in, what we want is the ability to decide how the money is spent and fully decide how the money is spent. Underneath all of this, and this is, everything that those of you who've been part of Manaaki Tairāwhiti and part of the way of working and all of the things that have been going on in region, is that everything that we are talking about is driven by the whānau, by whānau voice and a wellness outcome. And our commitment is that we have the systems in play in region, which this forum is an evidence of, that can actually track that stuff. We can prove things, we don't just make statements. So a key thing that we want to start socialising with you is this entity, and so there are no decisions made on any of this level of stuff yet. We want to be community owned. We want a process whereby basically all of you sitting in this room and the organisations that you represent feel like you own this entity. So we don't want to create something that sits over there and then comes in and tells you how this is going to work. We want you to be able to see that you have a level of control and influence and ownership on the thing that we are creating, because we want it to be permanent, we want it to be reflective of the region, and we want it to survive the way in which governments come and go, and we want it rooted in this region and the way this region thinks. So the ownership model, which we're beginning the kind of work of thinking what it might look like, the key principle is that it's community owned, but that there is a process through some kind of electoral college whereby a skill-based board is elected in some kind of way. We see the region kind of broken up into 5 portions, 5 groupings. And as I say, this is all open to comment, and really interested if any of you have comments either during the presentation, afterwards, or want to send us emails. Completely welcome all of that. This is very much on the design stage, but also working very rapidly to a process in January. So we think there's 5 sector groupings in the region that would own an entity like that, that being iwi, providers, government. Sorry, that shouldn't say central government, that should say local government. There is the public sector, local government, and the philanthropic sector. So how that's split up, we're working on, but we think that that captures everybody who has an interest in social services. And so in some way, the ownership would be reflected through those groupings. we're working on the key operating principles. So while we don't yet know how much money or how we have to apply or what the legal entity would be, what we're working on is getting to a point where we've made commitments and we've worked with the community to have these principles adopted, because then we can kind of run out anything as long as it fits these principles. So some kind of entity, maybe new, maybe based on something that already exists, but it will work in partnership with providers. It will not be the dictator. It will not be the whip holder. It is the partner to providers to creating success for whānau. It will be clear and transparent. There will be decisions that will need to be made about who is funded and who is not. The principle is that decision will be made by a skilled board, and it will be clear and transparent. It will not be prescriptive to service providers about methodology, and it will work with providers on what the outcomes are being sought. So again, it's not going to tell you 15 minutes per client of this time in this kind of way. It will say, talk to us about what you want to achieve, just so that we know and we can provide you with support and advice on that. It will focus on the outcomes, not the outputs. And this is a very key one. It will focus on scale, because part of what goes wrong is these little contracts. And, when I say little, I'm even talking in $1 million terms, but compared to the $1.5 billion being spent in the region on social service, a $1 million contract does not shift the dial in the way in which whānau interact and are supported. So we want, however much money we are able to gain, we're aiming for the billions. We want to pass that on to providers on scale so that they can operate on scale and so that they can operate independently of the Crown services. We see a way in which you work with whānau and then they still have to go off somewhere else. We want to create a kind of self-sustaining system that can operate entirely in region, entirely out of the public services. And the support that we provide to providers will be about holistic services, the whole whānau, the whole person, not a piece of them, not a characteristic, not a criteria. So the relationship between the commissioning entity will be with the providers. The commissioning entity is not a service provider. It will not have a relationship itself with whānau. It will have a relationship with providers. And so we're looking for providers who have certain characteristics. And that is that they are already whānau driven and are already providing holistic services, or are capable of providing them if they're let free to do so. That they are already successful in moving whānau towards well-being, as opposed to tick the box, I got them an appointment. That are innovative and agile and are already connected into a process that's seeking data and evidence to back up their work, and that they are able to be scaled when this opportunity comes through. So, in all honesty, there are not many providers in the region who meet that criteria already, just the same as there are not many regions in New Zealand that meet the SIA's criteria. So this is designed to be in perpetuity. So this is designed to be, we're going to do some things and start on a pathway, and then we're never getting off that pathway. So it only ever expands, learns more, and gets better. So the purpose in talking to you about this now is to say, A, we want you to know that it's happening. B, we're really interested in your opinion. Is there anything that we've talked about up here that you don't agree with? I mean, I can see lots of people nodding at me. I don't think for us any of this is rocket science at all. It may have been rocket science to the Crown, but I think it's how all of you have wanted to operate forever, and that we've articulated many, many times to the government about what's needed to change in the way in which services are provided. But anything about the model of community ownership, who's involved in those kinds of things, whether the sectors are the right sectors, whether we've got enough about whānau voice, whether they're represented in some kind of way as well. We'd love your feedback on that. I'll be here all day. Willie's here for a while. Grab either of us. In the working party is Leslyn and Moira and Jane. And so any of us, talk to any of us, and then to say there'll be a link in the website that will allow us for you to give direct feedback as well. On the website, in the forum page, there will be more detail on the Social Investment Agency, more detail on commissioning, and more detail on what we said to the Prime Minister when we said, put us at the top of the list. We're ready, we're willing, and we are able. So our next steps, we believe decisions are being made in Cabinet in December about what this will actually look like from the Social Investment Agency, and that calls will be made in 2026, probably in January, so very early in the year, to actually say, by invitation, put your business case forward. So we want to be ready for that call to straight away get it there. Technically, you could throw a working party at this and they could write it all up. The bit that takes time is bringing the community with us all in agreement that this is the way forward. So between now and Christmas, expect to see us again. Expect to see us in your workplaces, with your networks, at your board meetings, as we take the community through this process, so that when we get to that time, we can say we have, as near as possible to 100% backing of this community for this bid. Do you want to add anything, Willie? Are there any questions? Yep, you, yep, sorry.
Can you break down for us what this 1.5 billion represents?
I'll put a link in the website to some research that we had done. So that represents what MSD spends, what education and health spends in the region, what Oranga Tamariki. So it's all what the Crown is currently spending in the region, which if you devolved properly, you would devolve all of that to a regional decision-making process.
So that includes schools, housing?
Yep.
You want to have control of all that?
Yep. Not me. I want the region to have control of all of that.
You haven't asked for it, it's been presented, so you guys are wanting us to be able to have control of it.
Yeah.
Just an overview is that 1.5 billion, that's per annum, comes into this region. 800 million goes into government overheads. 700 million actually makes the region, and of that 700 million, 30 million comes through iwi organisations. Tūranga Health, Ngāti Pro Oranga, Te Runanga o Tūranganui Kiwa, Manaaki Tairāwhiti Housing. And so just on those figures alone, you would say if we had a better commissioning model instead of the current arrangements, you would look to reduce that overhead. So we believe that we can do it for at least half of that cost. And so that's 400 million that you can put back into service delivery. That's just one kind of macro example. When you look at, and I appreciate that kainga order is in the whare. When you look at the status quo as it was in the year 2000, within Tairāwhiti, iwi were delivering or being funded to deliver on average 5 houses per annum. We came in and we said that model, it's not about the status quo, it's about is that meeting the need of our whānau that need housing? And our answer to that was no. And we put a joint briefing paper to ministers in January 2021, and that led to 730 million being dedicated to Māori housing, and that's been over the last 4 years. So a lot of the announcements you've heard were from that original 730 million. So what we're wanting to do is actually have control over that funding so we can better utilise it. This system is broken. This system is broken. And so we all acknowledge that and we know that it can be done better, but no one stepped up and said, actually, what does better look like? We're very clear. And we've said, whether it be the education system, it's not just about the numbers of our kids that don't turn up to school. It's the reality that, for me as Te Aitanga Mahaki, 30% of my people living within my tribal area earn less than 20,000 per year. When the Kiwi average salary is 45 to 50,000, I've then got to move those people from $20,000 per year. So our people are most poorest in the homelands, because outside of this region, the number of te aitanga mahaki that earn less than 20,000 per year is 6%. And so this system is broken. This is our thoughts on how we can lead to change, to actually focus on the targets we all want, which are well-being. You are right. We haven't gone out to the schools. We haven't gone out to the health clinics. We haven't gone out to all of those groupings. But every grouping was invited on the 18th of September to actually submit an application. And so that was made to the schools, to the health, to the community to make that application. We got our collective together, Regional Council, the Philanthropics and Trust Tairāwhiti, our iwi, except for Ngāti Pro as explained, and our community providers in Tūranga Health and Toitu Tairāwhiti housing. And we indicated to the Prime Minister, you actually need to invest in us. And so what Judy has presented is, this isn't a fait accompli. We've presented a vision of what we can do. We want to work with the community to shape how we do that together.
Hold on to that. Down the back here.
Can you tell me what your vision of community development would be in terms of this proposal?
I'll repeat the question until the microphone circulates so that it gets into the live stream. So what is the vision for community development? So one of the things that Willie talked about, and one of the importance of the involvement of Council and Trust Tairāwhiti, is that lots of the social services that we do is a response to poverty. So we talk in wellness, and that means not just that we're going to have good services for people who are broken. We want to create an economy and a region that does not need those services, that starts with good housing, good jobs, meaningful jobs, self-worth through the expression of your talent, as opposed to we've put a bunch of people into the fields to pick lettuces for Liederbrand. So the connection is for the whole. The doorway is a social investment doorway. I tend to use social services just because I'm used to working in the sector now, but it's social development, it's social, it's economic development, it's the whole picture. That's why our end outcome is wellness.
So at a more grassroots level, do you see that there is a role for community development to help articulate the voice of whānau?
Yeah, if I could answer that and just give a quick example. When Cyclone Gabriel hit, one of my communities was the most affected in Te Karaka. And so all the initiatives were led out of Te Karaka, whether it be the insurance, the repairs of houses, the lifting of houses. Now we're working through the flood protection and reshaping that. That's all led by that community. And so the iwi, Regional Council, get behind that community that is leading their initiative. That's what we want, is we want each of our communities to be resilient, each of our communities to be self-leading. So I know my 7 communities as Te Aitanga Mahaki, from Matawai into Waihirere and then into Pātutahi. And we're building leadership within each of those communities to be able to be self-leading, which means this is not just about the social development and social investment area. This is about the work skills development. This is about the economic development. So a lot of our land development also has been around those communities. So we have, you go to Te Karaka and you see Tākipu Marae and you'll see an apple development that's taking place there. So what we're trying to do is build economic development within each of those communities as well. Te Karaka as well, we're looking at the resilience, and we put $1 million to our own civil defence centre. We have worked with NZTA Trek in terms of $10 million investment in lifting up Nesbitt's dip. It'll be called Hakanui Rise after the work is completed. And all of that is about what the community has said is their priorities, and it is the community leading those initiatives, and that's exactly what we want here.
Yeah. So the voice, the input from those of you who work in more of a development space than a service interaction, we welcome. I put that back up in terms of that within those groupings we see everything interacting and everything being represented, and we are always open to voice, to evidence and to advocation.
So thank you for your response, Willie. And I'm fortunate to live in Uawa and saw those responses in Uawa and, of course, further up the coast during Cyclone Gabrielle. I'm interested, though, in knowing about community development in our suburban areas and about the funding of local initiatives so that whānau voice can be better heard at a very grassroots level in communities like the community I used to live in Kaiti, and in places like Elgin. Community work has become pretty unfashionable in recent years, and I'm interested to know what support will be given to community grassroots initiatives to help articulate the voice of people living in those urban suburban communities.
So in our working party is Rewati Ropiha, who represents Tūranga Health, who's the Chief Executive of Tūranga Health and who will be here later in the day. His entire focus is on the suburb of Elgin in this process in terms of in the presentation that we did to the Prime Minister, we did case studies, and as I say, that included what Tūranga Health is doing in Elgin. You can go to a cafe in Elgin and not have to pay for your coffee, and from there you might be taken to the other half of the building, which is doing eye tests and ear tests, or you might go to the other side of the building, which is running a free fitness process. So in the mix, absolutely, is the urban environment, and as I say, again, that's part of the role of council. I've got some other hands over here. Happy to talk to you one-on-one.
I just want to make a comment is that this is only going to be successful if led by the community. And so if I look at Kaiti as an example, 4 months ago I was chairing a meeting of Black Power and Mungal Mob that wanted to look at how they eliminate the violence amongst themselves. That's an example. I'll be up at Poho at 11 o'clock today. There was a beating of a girl by two others, and I know all the families, and they've asked me to be a facilitator for that. And so we've got to look at solutions that come from those communities. Those are the only ones that are going to work. And so that's our main drive here, is that we certainly don't have the inner knowledge of how those communities roll. But it's just like our Tania Rona is here. It's just like our campaign for the local body elections. They started by our people on the streets, walking them, knocking on every door, making sure our people were registered, making sure they had their special votes, and making sure that they voted. So from our perspective, it was a great outcome when we retained our Māori ward, but it was led by that Kaiti community, the Elgin community, actually them knocking on doors. They don't want strangers knocking on their doors. They want their people knocking on their doors. So we've got to get that resource into those communities, and it's going to take collaboration to do that. The fantastic work that Rewati is doing in Elgin, philanthropic funding allowed for the purchase of those buildings, and now Tūranga Health is running that. I've come from breakfast with a subsidiary of the Anglican Church. They have $30 million to allocate per annum, and even though it's based in Auckland, a lot of the things that they're wanting to do, I want to do here as well. So we're not reliant wholly on the central government funding. We're actually looking at how we invest ourselves as iwi, and also looking at the philanthropic both here and across the country, and I'll be following that up with Annette Wehi when we fly up to Auckland next week to meet with key members of that trust. So that's $30 million for an Anglican Church subsidiary that they distribute every year, and Bishop Kito sits on that board, so we're working in with them, not to cut across anyone else. This is unallocated funding that we hunt for, and we do the same in the international environment. So I was over in Seattle, Washington, and then up to Vancouver 2 weeks ago, and I'm a hunter. I hunt for funding, and that's what I'm good at. I'm not the operational that can do the speak there. I'm the one that hunts for the resourcing for our people. So in housing, we went from $5 million per annum to now we average 50 million per year in our housing programs within Tairāwhiti and the Eastern Bay of Plenty. And then when called on, we've stretched down to, I saw a tātou here today, we stretched down to support our relations in Wairoa, in Mohaka, Raupunga, Napier and Omahu. So when they didn't have the infrastructure, we used our infrastructure to assist them. So this is very much community driven. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yep, over here.
I hear what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying too. The point is that there are gaps because there are some communities who are still missing out. So I'm mindful that as part of this project, whose responsibility is it to take the lead to ensure that all communities are able to develop accordingly? Because some miss out.
Progress, and so the question was about ensuring that all communities are able to participate, particularly those who are currently missing out. Those principles I've set up, I put up a small number of the key principles. We've got a bigger document that's live that I looked at this morning that had some more input into it, and one of those pieces of input was ensuring that we were really clear about our reach and support and understanding and representation of rural areas. So we're conscious that many of you in the room are representing services and input into Gisborne City. Mahaki is, of course, outside of Gisborne City, but that a lot of the poverty that is unseen by central government is actually outside of the city. I always remember the Commissioner for Children came for a visit, and he went up to Ruatoria. When he came back to Gisborne and into our office, so Judge Beecroft, was it? Yeah, Judge Beecroft. And he said, do you know, there are families up there that don't send their kids to school and are not registering their births and have no interaction with the system. And the answer is, yes, we did know that, but the system didn't know that. That's why we believe in local leadership.
Yeah, because that's the issue, For me, the issue is how do you identify those people in those areas and you build those people up to be meaningful?
Yeah. We have...
And some communities do not have the know-how to do just that.
Yeah. We have full credit. We have some fantastic people who work for the government in this region. And I'm married into the region, but I've lived here for 18 years, and I see people moving from job to job inside of the public sector because their commitment is not to their top commitment is not necessarily to the organisation they're working for, it's to the region and to the whānau. And so the public sector's people who are in this room are mostly from this region and care about this region. So their issue is that they have a set of rules that don't allow them to do things. So we want to take away from that set of rules that come out of Wellington and stop people doing what's right in our region.
Sorry, and just to add in there, there's a huge issue around addictions right across the board. So I would imagine that somewhere in here is addictions.
Yeah, so later on this morning, Jane and the team are going to talk to you about iwi-led kaupapa, one of which is around addictions, another is about family violence. So absolutely those work areas are there. I kind of didn't put up the areas that we would focus on because, again, we don't necessarily want to dictate that, but you would presume, logically, housing, health, addictions, family violence, child wellbeing would be our top. Kia ora koutou, any?
Just one, thanks.
Min?
Yeah, kia ora whānau. Just a question. Judy, or maybe Willie, with what respect does this project proposal give to Crown-iwi relationships regarding the treaty?
Yeah, good question, Min. This doesn't impact on existing treaty relationships that iwi have. So whether it be the accord or te taumata that Ngāti Porou has with the Crown, or whether it be the local leadership board that the three iwi of Tūranga have, it doesn't impact on those. So this is the general approach that the government has made in this area. Ngāti Porou will have its own unique way that it wants to work through the process. It can either work in with the commissioning or separately use your accord when you meet with the government in the early next year. So that still is live in terms of how you take your approach to commissioning or other issues relating to Ngāti Porou.
The way that I used to talk, you know, Hedawini understood a process in this area. It took a long time for me to work through with George that this is that this is multiple horses in the same race that will share the dividend at the end. It's not competition, it's not instead of, it's and.
But yeah, I equally want to be clear. The government has a process. It has defined what community commissioning is. There will only be one for this region. Hey, so there won't be a Ngāti Porou one and others. There'll be one for this region. Okay? Does that prevent Ngāti Porou from working through its own arrangements through its accord? No. Hey, but there'll only be one commissioning, community commissioning for this region.
What would that look like?
In terms of the commissioning? Yeah, so what Judy's presented is that there's 5 areas that currently cover the social investment area. There's iwi, there's philanthropic, it's those ones that are noted there. So that's what we call an electoral college will come together with representation from everyone that's a part of those sectors. Some people cross over many of those sectors. Some are just firmly in one, all right? That's the first thing. The second thing is that this group will then appoint a board that will represent this region, not represent their area, but represent the region. That board will then work in with providers, with community, with everyone in terms of the well-being outcomes that we want to see. We all have an understanding of what well-being looks like, and it's how we communicate that and consolidate that into a single plan. If we get the invitation to work through this process, we're expecting the end of January, February to do that. We're expecting to have contracts locked in by the end of June to begin in July. The other aspect that we're looking at is that it be like they did with housing back in 2021, it'll be over many years and over the election cycle. So what we're trying to do is embed this in the baseline funding so that we're not going cap in hand every year or every time government changes. So those are 3 points.
Yeah. It's that's the other reflection, is that we want things locked in before the election, because who knows what that's going to produce. The good thing is the Social Investment Agency and the Social Development Board has been created. The Social Development Board has multi-party or cross-sector party representation. So there is an attempt in Wellington to make this kind of above politics. Down here.
Kia ora tātou. Just a question as a provider of social service in the sector. We've been able to work individually with the different rōpū that make up Manaaki Tairāwhiti. Mm-hmm. How can you reassure us as providers that this approach is going to benefit us as providers that provide service to the gaps that people are talking about? Because when we've worked with the individual rōpūs that make up Manaaki Tairāwhiti, it's been awesome. When we have historically worked with Manaaki Tairāwhiti, hasn't been so good. So how can you reassure us that this approach is going to be good?
So whatever the commissioning entity is, it's not Manaaki Tairāwhiti and it's not iwi. It may base itself around something that currently exists, but it will be a new thing. A key thing to realise is that Manaaki Tairāwhiti successfully brought in millions of dollars into navigators and research and development in the region over the years. We had a point in June of this year where we had no ongoing funding. We had also been funded by what was Te Puna Aonui, now called the Centre for Prevention of Family Violence and Sexual Violence. Our contract is only to June 30th of next year, so there is no guarantee. I'm being shown 5 minutes at the back there. There's no guarantee about ongoing funding out of Manaaki Tairāwhiti, which is why, but one of the reasons that we were given a 1-year contract as opposed to what we'd had in the past, so 3-year contracts, was because the government saw the SIA as the more natural home to the kind of work that Manaaki has been doing. So lots of things to be worked through, but to some extent this is also the burning platform of potentially nothing versus something. Yep.
So I'll just, Jojo's Min. The reality is we've got to work together. No single organisation can lead the quantum leap change that we need in this community. When I talk about the amount of Te Aitanga Mahaki people, 30% earning less than 20,000 per year in our own rohe, that's going to take me at least 20 years to lead change. A lot of the change that we're looking at is 10 years, some may be 5 years. But this is about building the platform for enduring change that builds resilience within these whānau and within these communities. And this is our opportunity. I saw the window of opportunity when the new government in November 2020 came in. And we jumped in and we influenced the budget, and then we've led out the housing kaupapa. We see the opportunity in this. The speeches last May leading to the setup of the Social Investment Agency. I don't think we should be ngākau rua about this. We know that the system is broken. We know that we can do better. What Jojo's asking is, will there be true collaboration? There must be. Otherwise, this is going to be tipped over as soon as it starts because people will lose faith in it. And so I wanted to know that. Sorry, man.
One more question and then...
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to know how you can be so sure as to say that it won't go to iwi when we have just seen a huge commissioning go to one iwi from Wellington.
Are you talking Tūhoe?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
so there were 4 pathways that were outlined, and one of those pathways was in investment, and so there were 2 that led that. There was Ngāti Toa, and there was Te Tihi o Ruahine, our relation Matero Ma. And so that was a pathway that people had the opportunity to bid for. That closed in September, all right? Then there was the contract consolidation. That closed in October. Now there's the commissioning, and decisions will be made on the 8th of December on the framework and those regions that are going to be approached, and those regions will then be approached in January, February. This is a timeline that we've all had access to that came out on the 18th of September. So Ngāti Toa, Te Tihi o Ruahine and others chose to go through that first pipeline. We don't want 200 million. We want 1.5 billion. That's what we want. And so we haven't gone down that pathway. We're focused purely on community commissioning and what we've proposed today.
Yeah. Min, what I'd say is that there are other pathways into the Social Investment Agency. The community commissioning pathway, what the Social Investment Agency's website says, this is a direct quote from them. So they've used the word community commissioning. So they want to see something that goes across the community and represents a whole of community rather than something as big and specialist as an iwi, is our understanding. Now, I've been around the government for a long time. I know they change their mind. I know that things fall out in different ways from what they initially say. So, yeah, I wouldn't say 100%, but I would say that the indications are that a community process that has a wide range of stakeholders and ownership and has had experience in working across the community is what they're looking for. I see your hands up, and I'm happy to talk to you after this. I just want to keep the schedule on. So we're going to finish up this session and come into the next one. Being the first presenter, there's always a level of nervousness when you first stand up here. I should have introduced ourselves. So I'm Judy Campbell. I work at Manaaki Tairāwhiti. I'm the strategic advisor for Manaaki Tairāwhiti, having come from Chief Executive of Council, Chief Executive of Tairāwhiti Polytechnic, and Willie represents Mahaki and is the Chief Executive of...
Yeah, I'm just a mercenary. So, if the people want me to do a kaupapa, then I go hard. Ngāti one ki te whenua. They approached me to help them, and we're very thankful with the resolution we reached with Trust Tairāwhiti and mihi atu ki a koe te rangatira. Very thankful with the progress we're making there. But I have nothing to prove in life. I'm happy with the life that I've lived, and then where people have a compelling kaupapa, then I'm there. And with all the work that you do, we can't unsee the poverty, we can't unsee the violence, but we must do something about it. And so we're putting up a proposition, not a fait accompli, a proposition on how we think we can go forward and make better decisions for our whānau. We welcome your input. We're looking for one-on-one discussions. We're looking for public discussions. We'll be rolling that out over the next month because Cabinet makes decisions on the 8th of December, and we want to be in the running for a positive decision. So a lot of this is hitting the Prime Minister when he came up to the show and putting this proposition to him. I was on a call with Tama Pōtaka and Minister Watts, whose wife is from Te Karaka, last night, and lobbying them. And so we need to put our best foot forward together. And yeah, we can't see the full picture, but what I'm saying is, if we can't have faith in each other, then we are truly lost, because this system is broken and we need to have faith. We're the solution. We in this room are the solution, and we've got to back ourselves to be the solution that our people need and back them. Kia ora.
Kia ora. I'm going to introduce the next speaker now, but I also want to tell you about these amazing light works here behind us. They're by an artist from Uawa. They're by Rina Kirikiri, and honestly, they're one of the most wonderful things I've seen in a long time, is the way that they move.